They told him he couldn't fight. His country said he wasn't good enough. His commanders said he wasn't ready. His fellow soldiers said he didn't belong. But on March 17, 1945, in a small German town called Kreuzberg, one man proved them all wrong. His name was Marcus Cole. He was 24 years old, and he was about to do something that would change the course of history. This is the story of the first African-American tank commander to receive the Medal of Honor in World War II. A story of courage against impossible odds. A story of a man who fought 2 wars at once, one against the enemy and one for respect. This is his story. December 7, 1941. Pearl Harbor. America entered World War II with a fierce determination to defeat fascism and tyranny, but there was a cruel irony at the heart of this fight for freedom. At home, African Americans faced segregation, discrimination, and systematic oppression. They couldn't eat at the same restaurants, couldn't attend the same schools, couldn't even drink from the same water fountains. And the military? It was just as divided. Black soldiers were relegated to support roles: cooks, drivers, laborers. The military establishment believed they lacked the intelligence, courage, and discipline for combat. It was an ugly lie built on centuries of prejudice. But some men refused to accept this fate. Marcus Cole was one of them. Born in Chicago in 1920, Marcus grew up in a working-class family. His father was a steel worker. His mother was a seamstress. They taught him 2 things: work hard, never accept anyone telling you what you can't do. When Marcus turned 21 in 1941, he tried to enlist in the Army. He wanted to be a tanker to operate those powerful machines that were changing modern warfare. The recruitment officer laughed in his face. "Son," he said, "colored boys don't drive tanks. You can work in the motor pool, maybe kitchen duty." Marcus walked out, but he didn't give up. By 1943, the war was turning brutal. Casualties were mounting. The Army needed men, all men. Slowly, begrudgingly, they began to allow African American soldiers into combat roles. In January 1944, the 761st Tank Battalion was formed. It would be one of the first all-black tank units in U.S. military history. They called themselves the Black Panthers. Marcus Cole was among the first to volunteer. Fort Hood, Texas. Summer 1944. The 761st Tank Battalion began their training in the scorching heat of the Texas desert. They would learn to operate Med-4 Sherman tanks, 30-ton beasts of steel, armed with 75 mm cannons. But before they could face the enemy abroad, they had to face the enemy at home. The white officers assigned to train them didn't believe in them. Many saw this assignment as punishment. They pushed the Black Panthers harder than any white unit, hoping they would fail, hoping to prove their racist assumptions correct. One instructor stood before the battalion on their first day. "I don't know why they're wasting time training you people. You'll break and run the first time you see combat. That's just how you are." Marcus stood in formation. His jaw clenched, his fists tight. He said nothing, but he made a promise to himself: "I will prove you wrong." The training was brutal. 18-hour days. Live-fire exercises. Tank maneuvers through difficult terrain. Mechanical training. Weapons qualification. The Black Panthers excelled at every single test. By the fall of 1944, they had the highest marks of any tank battalion in Fort Hood. Their gunnery scores were exceptional. Their mechanical aptitude was outstanding. Their discipline was impeccable. But recognition never came. When white units graduated, there were ceremonies, praise, promotions. When the 761st completed their training, there was only silence and orders: ship out to Europe. At 10 p.m. on October 10, 1944, Marcus Cole stood on the deck of a transport ship, watching the lights of New York disappear into the darkness. He was heading to war. Not just against Nazi Germany, but against every person who had ever told him he wasn't good enough. He was ready. November 1944, France. The 761st Tank Battalion arrived in Europe and was immediately assigned to General George Patton's Third Army. Patton, controversial, brilliant, and complicated, addressed the battalion personally before their first mission. "Men," he said, standing before them in his polished uniform, "everyone has their eyes on you. They expect you to fail. I don't care what color you are. If you can fight, you fight. If you can't, you're useless to me." It wasn't exactly inspiring, but it was something. Now get out there and show them what you're made of. The 761st was deployed to the Metz region of France. Their mission: break through heavily fortified German defensive lines. It was November, cold, wet, miserable. The Germans were dug in, desperate and dangerous. This was not going to be easy. Marcus Cole was assigned as a gunner in a Sherman tank nicknamed Black Knight. His crew consisted of 5 men, all from different parts of America, all black, all determined to prove themselves. Their first combat mission came at 6 a.m. on November 8, 1944. The target was a fortified German position outside the town of Vic-sur-Seine. Intelligence reports indicated heavy machine gun nests, anti-tank guns, and possibly armor support. As dawn broke, Marcus sat in the gunner's position, peering through the periscope. His heart was pounding. His hands were steady. The radio crackled, "Black Panthers, advance." The sound was deafening. Engines roaring, treads grinding, radio chatter. And then, enemy fire. Bullets pinged off the Sherman's armor. Explosions erupted around them. Marcus could see German positions through his scope. Concrete bunkers, muzzle flashes, movement. Target 12 o'clock, 200 meters. The commander shouted. Marcus adjusted, aimed, squeezed the trigger. Boom. The 75 mm cannon roared. The shell hit its target dead center. The bunker exploded in smoke and debris. Hit. Target destroyed. For the next 6 hours, the Black Panthers fought through the German defenses. They destroyed bunkers, silenced machine gun nests, knocked out anti-tank positions. By the end of the day, they had achieved their objective. 0 casualties. The white units who had doubted them were stunned. But Marcus and the Black Panthers, they were just getting started. December 1944 through February 1945 was hell. The 761st Tank Battalion fought through some of the most brutal conditions of the war: freezing temperatures, constant rain and snow, mud so thick tanks would sink, and relentless German resistance. They fought in the Battle of the Bulge, Hitler's last desperate offensive. They held defensive positions when white units retreated. They broke through enemy lines when others couldn't. Marcus Cole's crew became legendary within the battalion. Black Knight was always at the front, always in the fight, always getting results. But the cost was high. Friends died. Brothers in arms were killed by artillery, by snipers, by anti-tank rounds that punched through Sherman armor like paper. Marcus saw men he'd trained with, laughed with, bled with, gone in an instant. One night in January, after a particularly brutal engagement, Marcus sat alone in the dark, cleaning his weapon. His hands were shaking, not from fear, but from exhaustion and grief. Another tanker approached him. "You okay, Cole?" Marcus didn't answer immediately. Then quietly, "How many good men do we have to lose before they respect us?" The other soldier had no answer. But Marcus found his answer on March 17, 1945. March 17, Torchberg, Germany. The 761st Tank Battalion was advancing through western Germany, pushing toward the Rhine River. The war was nearing its end, but the Germans were still fighting fiercely, defending every town, every street, every building. Kreuzberg was a small industrial town with strategic importance. Intelligence indicated moderate resistance, maybe a company of infantry, some anti-tank guns, nothing the Black Panthers couldn't handle. Intelligence was wrong. At 9 a.m., the 761st entered Kreuzberg from the south. Marcus Cole's Black Knight was in the lead position of the column. 5 tanks total. The ambush hit at 9:17 a.m. The Germans had prepared a killing zone. Hidden anti-tank guns, infantry with Panzerfaust rockets. Even a Tiger tank, one of the most feared machines in the German arsenal, concealed in a building. The first American tank exploded before anyone even saw where the shot came from. 5 men died instantly. Chaos erupted. German fire came from every direction. The American column was trapped in a narrow street with buildings on both sides. Classic ambush. Deadly effective. Marcus's commanders screamed into the radio, "Back! Back! We need to retreat." But Marcus saw something through his periscope. German infantry were flanking from the east. If they retreated now, they'd be cut off. Surrounded, annihilated. "Commander," Marcus shouted, "we can't go back. We have to push through." "Are you insane? There's a tiger out there." "I can take it." For a moment, there was silence. The commander had to make a decision. Trust Marcus, or order a retreat that might get them all killed. Do it. Marcus swung the turret, scanning for the tiger. Their Mies partially hidden behind rubble, its massive 88mm gun already turning toward them. It was a race. Whoever fired first would live. The other would die. Marcus didn't hesitate. He aimed at the tiger's thinner side armor, adjusted for distance and fired. Boom! The shell hit. But the tiger's armor held. It wasn't enough. The tiger's gun was now pointed directly at them. "Load!" Marcus screamed. "Load now!" The loader slammed another shell into the breach. 3 seconds. It felt like an eternity. The tiger fired. The shell screamed past, missing Black Knight by inches, slamming into the building behind them. Marcus fired again. Boom! This time, the shell penetrated. The tiger's ammunition exploded from inside. The entire tank erupted in flames. Target destroyed. But the battle wasn't over. German infantry were now swarming the street. Panzerfaust rockets streaked through the air. Machine gun fire rattled against the Sherman's hull. Marcus's tank pushed forward, firing the main gun, firing the machine guns, crushing German positions under its treads. The other American tanks followed his lead. For 2 hours, the battle raged through Kreuzberg, house to house, street to street. And then at 11:30 a.m., it was over. The Germans retreated. Kreuzberg was liberated. Marcus Cole and his crew climbed out of Black Knight. The tank was scarred with bullet impacts, scorched by near-miss explosions, but still operational. Around them, the town was in ruins. Smoke rose from burning vehicles, but they had won. And Marcus had done the impossible. He had defeated a Tiger tank in a Sherman. Something experienced white crews had failed to do countless times. The radio crackled. It was the battalion commander, Cole. "That was the bravest damn thing I've ever seen. Command wants to see you." The days following Kreuzberg were strange for Marcus. Word of his actions spread through the Third Army. A black tanker had saved his entire column, destroyed a Tiger tank, and led a successful assault through an ambush that should have been a massacre. White officers who had previously ignored the Black Panthers suddenly wanted to meet them. Reporters asked for interviews. Even General Patton himself visited the 761st. Marcus was recommended for the Medal of Honor, the highest military decoration in the United States. But there was a problem. The Medal of Honor required approval from the highest levels of command, and in 1945, the idea of giving America's most prestigious military award to a black soldier was uncomfortable for many in power. The recommendation was delayed, then reviewed, then delayed again. Marcus didn't care about medals. He cared about his brothers in arms. He cared about finishing the war. He cared about going home. But his fellow soldiers cared, because Marcus's recognition would be their recognition, proof that they belonged, proof that they were equal. Weeks passed. The war in Europe ended on May 8, 1945. Germany surrendered. Victory. The 761st Tank Battalion had fought for 183 consecutive days. They had suffered heavy casualties. They had never retreated. They had never failed a mission. And yet, when victory celebrations were held, they were often excluded. When medals were distributed, they received far fewer than comparable white units. Marcus Cole still hadn't received his Medal of Honor. Marcus Cole returned to America in September 1945. He had served his country with distinction. He had saved lives. He had proven every racist assumption wrong. But when he stepped off the transport ship in New York, he was still a black man in a segregated America. He couldn't eat at certain restaurants, couldn't stay at certain hotels, couldn't vote in certain states. The irony was crushing. He had fought for freedom abroad, but freedom at home remained elusive. For years, Marcus tried to move on. He got a job at a factory in Chicago. He married his childhood sweetheart. He tried to build a quiet life, but he couldn't forget. And neither could the men who had served with him. In the 1970s, a movement began. Historians and veterans started investigating why so few African American soldiers had received the Medal of Honor during World War II, despite countless acts of extraordinary valor. They found systematic discrimination. Black soldiers had been held to impossible standards. Their recommendations were buried, denied, or ignored. Marcus Cole's name was on that list. In 1997, more than 50 years after the Battle of Kreuzberg, President Bill Clinton announced a review of Medal of Honor recommendations for African American World War II veterans. 7 men would finally receive the recognition they had earned. Marcus Cole was one of them. On January 13, 1997, at the White House, President Clinton placed the Medal of Honor around Marcus Cole's neck. Marcus was 76 years old. Many of his fellow Black Panthers had already passed away. "This medal is long overdue," the president said, "but it is never too late to say, thank you. Thank you for your service. Thank you for your sacrifice. Thank you for proving that courage has no color." Marcus stood there, tears in his eyes, wearing the medal he should have received 52 years earlier. In his acceptance speech, he said something that silenced the room. "This medal doesn't just belong to me. It belongs to every black soldier who fought when their country told them they weren't good enough. It belongs to the men who died believing they would never be recognized. It belongs to the mothers and fathers who raised children in a country that denied them dignity. I accept this medal not for myself, but for all of them." The room erupted in applause. Marcus Cole died in 2003 at the age of 83. He is buried in Arlington National Cemetery, alongside the heroes he always saw himself standing with. The 761st Tank Battalion was recognized with a Presidential Unit Citation. Their motto, "Come Out Fighting," became legendary. Many historians now consider them one of the most effective armored units in the entire European theater. But Marcus's impact goes far beyond military history. His story became a symbol, a reminder that courage and excellence exist regardless of race, that prejudice and discrimination are not just morally wrong, they're strategically stupid, denying a nation its best and brightest. In 1948, President Truman desegregated the U.S. military. It was a direct result of men like Marcus Cole proving that black soldiers could fight, could lead, could excel. The civil rights movement of the 1950s and 60s drew strength from World War II veterans who asked a simple question: if we're good enough to die for this country, why aren't we good enough to be treated as equals? Marcus Cole never sought to be a civil rights icon. He just wanted to serve his country and be treated with dignity. But by refusing to accept the limitations others placed on him, by fighting with extraordinary courage, and by demanding recognition, he helped change a nation. This is the story of Marcus Cole, the tank commander who changed history. But it's also the story of every person who has ever been told, "You can't." Because the truth is simple. Excellence doesn't care about your skin color. Courage doesn't ask for permission. And history remembers those who refuse to accept the limitations others try to impose. Marcus Cole faced 2 enemies in World War II. He defeated both, and in doing so, he reminded all of us what true heroism looks like. It's not just fighting the enemy in front of you. It's fighting for justice, equality, and dignity, even when your own country denies it to you. That's the legacy of Marcus Cole. That's the legacy of the Black Panthers. That's a legacy we should never forget. Now we are coming to the end of the video. If you like the video, don't forget to like and subscribe.